Yes, sir. Welcome back to Talkin Nets, episode 49. We are 0-2 in the first round of the NBA playoffs. We've been defeated twice by the Toronto Raptors, which is okay. It's not great. It's not a great feeling. We watched the game in the office today. Keith McPherson and Hudson Flynn coming to you from the Bronx, New York at Jomboy Media Headquarters. And we've, had some time to talk about the game and the team and, what we're thinking and what we're feeling. It is 6:39, about to be 6:40. So we're about 25 minutes from the start of the Yankee game. And we're going to come to you and talk about the Nets and what we think about the Nets and what we thought about these games. Quickly, though, this is a reaction pod. Hudson Flynn, say what's up to the people.
Keith, it's not all doom and gloom. I don't think we have to lean into all the bad that happened. Obviously, we lost 2 games, but there's some goods to take away from it. There were some good performances, some good things for the future, a little bit of a realignment of our expectations for what this Nets team is actually capable of in the playoffs against the reigning champions. And we're back in the office. We're back with the soundproofing, with the good microphones, back together, got to cover the game together. And that's big. It was a good time, and I think it was really good for the future.
Yeah, definitely good vibes, good energy. Hudson and I are reunited in the Bronx, where we haven't been since March.
It's been, March 9th, I think, was the day that everything shut down. We were all sent home. It's been
Monday,
a minute.
I think it was Monday.
We
March.
recorded.
We recorded.
Yeah.
The greatest rapper of all time died on March 9th, Notorious B.I.G. I remember giving some Biggie shout-outs. And
yeah, we switched up the intro music.
Yeah, that's crazy, man, how fast time moves and how much things have changed. But either way, we're back. And like Hudson said, we watched the game in the office today. That was cool. If you follow us on Twitter, which you should, if you follow us on Instagram, which you should, at Talkin Nets, you probably saw us together with the shirts, pregame, going into the game, high spirits. We didn't win, but the Nets covered. And we're going to talk about the last 2 games. So let's start with game 1. I guess I'll lead it off. My thoughts about game 1 is that the Nets came into that game dead, asleep, like sleepwalking into that game against the defending champs, where you can't show up to a NBA playoffs game 1, even if there's a game 1 curse, and not have high intensity, high motor, and be ready to play against a Toronto Raptors team coached by Nick Nurse. Like, they're going to steamroll you, and they did.
A battle-tested Toronto Raptors team. I mean, this whole team knew exactly what they were doing. They came out fast. They came out strong, and the Nets just didn't have any of the energy that we had brought in the games in the bubble. I mean, the game before, we played the Blazers. We played them hard, a Blazers team that beat LeBron in game 1 of their series. We played them hard. We took them down to the last shot. It was good luck that they won, bad luck that we won on that last Karras opportunity. We had a good shot, but then we came out, and we came out flat, and you can't do that against the Raptors. 24-point loss, 134-110. Disappointing. The Raptors shot 50% from deep. They also hit twice as many shots as we did from deep on around the same amount of looks. So they were just draining it. They were just killing it. They had us up 37-20 in the first quarter. They finished off the half strong. The Nets looked dazed. They looked confused. But then they went in the half, Keith, and then things changed.
Yeah, we owned that third quarter. And before I talk about the third quarter, which was the best showing we had in that first game, how much does it suck to see the Orlando Magic go and beat the Bucks?
Man, we have a special beef with the Orlando Magic,
yeah.
But still, to see that a team in that 8 seed, that a team that we know that we're better than or we can at least compete with, going up against the 1 seed, I think it's a matchup that we would have wanted.
Yeah, we definitely would have wanted that matchup, and I think we could have done just as good as the Magic did at stopping Giannis and forcing him to make shots and containing everybody else. But this is not a Magic pod or a Bucks pod. This is a Nets pod. Focus on the Nets and what we're doing. But, yeah, we already said it. Toronto came out motivated, and we got in early foul trouble. Obviously, Rhodey, I think I tweeted to Talkin Nets, like, how many fouls has he got? He's got 4 fouls, 5 fouls. It just wasn't good. We were turning the ball over in that first game. But once we get into halftime, adjustments get made, and I knew that they needed to just sit down, collect their thoughts, and figure it out. And we came out and punched them in the mouth in the third quarter. That was the best quarter of basketball that we played in that game. We ended up winning that quarter 35-22, and we made it competitive again. I think we got within
Within 8 points.
Yeah,
at
less
the
than
end
a
of the
10
third. It was a close game. Everyone started looking at the game. Everyone was turning the game back on again. And I think that's to the credit of Jacques Vaughn. I think that's another notch on his belt, another impressive thing that he's done in the bubble. He was able to take a team that got absolutely obliterated like we had never seen in the bubble, save for maybe that Celtics game. But that Celtics game was actually closer, for longer than this Raptors game was in the first half. And he settled the team, and he let the team go out, and he let them go out hot. And we won that third quarter. 35-22 was the score, and that's a big win. And that's some big energy that a lot of Nets fans I saw on Twitter and a lot of people, in the NBA watching the game in general didn't think that the Nets were going to be able to have, because they are that team, that rookie team, that team full of G Leaguers who doesn't have the most, NBA playoff experience like this Raptors team have. And they took a punch to the mouth and they kept fighting, which I think is to the credit of Jacques Vaughn and to this team.
All credit to Jacques Vaughn and these underdog bubble Nets. These guys have been scrappy, and even though they started off slow, they could have laid down completely in that game. Obviously, they still got beat by 24, but that third quarter is what you got to take away from that game. Karras, they shut Karras down in both games, but Karras went to distributing the ball. He had his assist up. That was good to see from him. I wish that he would take less of those threes. I wish that he would, if that's not your shot, bro. Everybody's talking about your mid-range game. Everybody's talking about, Karras killing him with the middies. Don't force that three up every time you get it. What else from this game? GT, from both of these games, and we'll get into the second one, but I said on the last pod, GT is the calming agent. He's the calm, cool, collected veteran. He is there when we need him. When things start to unravel, when you start to get uneasy, GT is there with a three.
He was there with 1 3. You're talking about Karras missing threes. GT went 1 of 10 from deep
in the first game, yeah. But I'm leaning now into this second game.
Well, I think before we get there, we have to give a shout out to our guy, the guy that we stan on Twitter, Timothée Luwawu-Cabarrot. Had to throw on the full accent.
Whoa.
Had to do as good as I could to give him the respect he deserves, because he came out and he was actually the only Nets player, and they played the full rotation. Even Zan and Musa got 4 minutes. That was a positive plus-minus player coming off the bench, especially after Rhodey fouled out, got those 5 fouls of 16 minutes. He was a +2 player, but he was a +2 player with 26 points. He was shooting 6 of 9 from 3, 9 of 13 from the field. He hit his free throws. He had 7 rebounds. TLC is officially a Sean Marks Reclamation Project success. Yeah. He is officially achieved his potential, and he is officially under contract with the Nets next season for $1.2 million.
Yeah, he's a part of this team in the future moving forward, and people in NBA circles now are talking about him.
He even got featured on Bleacher Report's new animated series.
Which, they're talking about the Nets, Talkin Nets. The future is bright for Nets fans. Listen, Talkin Nets fam, it's gonna be all right. Everyone knows what's going down right now in this bubble. We got guys like TLC hitting threes and making waves in the NBA world. And, yeah, all credit to Sean Marks for the fine. I have in my notes when I mentioned GT, I said GT shot like shit first half, 1 of 7, 0 of 6 from 3. But he made up for it today in the second game. Anything else from this first game? Most of my notes from this first game are bad, and I just want to get to the more recent game.
Let's keep it positive. The last thing I'll say is that, and especially going into this next game too, Rhodey played himself out of a starting spot. He worked so hard to earn himself a starting spot in those bubble games and in those scrimmages where he was draining threes, looking good, not fouling as much as he normally does. But he went back to his old ways that we've seen this season. 16 minutes, 6 fouls. He's out. And he's out of the starting lineup for the next game and replaced by TLC.
Rhodey with a dab of ranch. Too much dip on your chip, brother. You got to slow it down. Everything else in my notes is just credit to the Raptors. Fred is a dog, 6 for 6 in the first half, back-to-back threes. Gasol starts playing bully ball. Rhodey can't check him. Rhodey's going to foul out in the first half. Siakam was 6 for 6 from the floor with 3 minutes left in the third. Nets, blah, 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 blah. Let's go
Raptors
on.
are good.
Yeah, let's
Nets
go on.
did not play very good.
It sucks.
Game 2.
It sucks, but I want everyone listening to this podcast. I actually popped in on Talkin Yanks. They just recorded Sharp Stats episode with Katie Sharp. And Katie Sharp, I guess, had her eyes on the Nets game a little bit. And I said, imagine this. The Yankees last year playing with backups that weren't Gio Urshela, weren't Mike Talkman, weren't Mike Ford. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, imagine scrapping together a bunch of guys, making moves for a bunch of guys, and then running into the playoffs, not the regular season, with them. Trying to put it in baseball terms for Jimmy, Jake, KT Sharp. The Nets are out there playing with guys that no one heard of, guys that no one wanted, and they're competing. So credit to Jacques Vaughn once again. Let's talk about today's game.
Which was a better game.
Today was
all
a
around.
much better game from the start. Great start, great energy. What were you thinking when I mean, obviously I was sitting next to you, but let's paint the picture for the listeners.
I mean, we come into this game and we're both ready for the Nets to come out lackadaisical and to get smoked and for it to be a bad start.
Yeah.
So when the Nets came out and they went out hot, we were essentially floored. I mean, it was absolutely not what we were expecting. We had kind of re-leveled our expectations a little lower, significantly lower than where we had them before game one. And the Nets came out and they delivered with a new starting lineup that included TLC and Garrett Temple.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I feel like it means something for these guys when they're in the starting lineup. You know, raise your game. You're starting. You're going to run out there. You're going to get the minutes. Go out there and do what you got to do and bring that energy that we need. You could tell right away that the Nets were not going to sleepwalk into this one. You could tell right away that they felt that. And I think we spoke about them having to watch yesterday, watching Dame knock off LeBron and the Lakers. 8 seed beating a 1 seed. And watching Vucevic and Markelle Fultz knock off the Bucks, the AC get it done. And them sitting there thinking about, wow, we're a 7 seed, we're almost an 8 seed.
And we got disrespected.
And we got smoked. We did not bring our game.
So they stepped up, and that was huge for me. It was a huge opening response. I think it was exactly what we needed. Again, all credit to Jacques Vaughn. That doesn't just happen.
No.
Players don't just get together and do that themselves. Obviously, there's players like MJ, the great players who can find their own internal drive. But we don't have MJ on this team. We have Garrett Temple and Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot. So
Tyler Johnson and shit.
And Tyler Johnson, Rodions Kuru, Zanin Musa, Donta Hall, Lance Thomas.
Donta Hall.
we love Donta Hall on the podcast.
Oh, man. So TLC early. What do I say about that guy? He attacks. He's got back-to-back threes. We open a 10-point lead, 22-12, very quickly. Everybody's feeling it. Nets Twitter is up. I see Pooch out there tweeting. I see Matt Brooks out there tweeting. Like, okay. Now, the spread to this game was 11, and we did cover. But, man, early on, the lead that we had, I wish we could have held. We held that lead all the way until late in the game. Toronto didn't take a lead until it was 84-83. But let's go back to the first quarter. With 5 minutes left in the first quarter, we're on an 8-0 run. We were shooting 75%. They were shooting 25%.
I mean, that's just a complete role reversal from the last game when the Nets were shooting like garbage and the Raptors were shooting well. And we talked about it. We knew that that's not something that can last. It's unsustainable shooting. And it was, but it wasn't so unsustainable. The way we were playing wasn't so unsustainable and so reliant on the three.
Right.
That we couldn't maintain a lead. When the Raptors took the final lead that they carried into the end of the game, that had only been the second lead change of the game.
Yeah.
The Nets had carried a lead for, safe to say, 85% of the game.
Turnovers. You can't turn the ball over that much. They had 17 turnovers in this game to the Raptors 9.
And they scored 23 points off those turnovers.
Bruh,
the
there's no
did.
way you're beating the defending champs literally giving them the ball. We watched this game, and we watched the Nets turn it over, and then immediately the Raptors are turning it into a bucket.
Because the Raptors play in transition. That's where their game is. They don't play the half court. They play in transition. And here's what I'm thinking about from this game. The Nets lost. The Nets lost because of a lot of reasons, because of the turnovers, because of some of the way that we played. Some of our star players, like we're going to get into, didn't play their best games. But the Nets lost because they lost themselves. They didn't lose to the Raptors. They lost to those 17 turnovers and those 23 points because the Raptors are going to get their points. When they go on offense, they're going to get those points. So what you can't do is give them those points. Everything has to be earned, and the Raptors didn't have to earn it.
They didn't have to earn it. It was there for him. It was pretty easy. Guys like Fred was cooking at a few points. I think he was leading all scorers at a lot of points in this game. And guys like Karras, who we're expecting to lead us in scoring and be the A1, Karras went cold, and it's okay. We talked about this too. I said, you know what? Karras has nights like he put up 37 against the Blazers, and everybody in the country's talking about Karras LeVert, but he's not there yet. He's not on a level of a KD or, some of these other superstars in the NBA where they're going to put up that 30 night after night after night. He went cold today. He had 16 today. And the three, in my notes I said, Karras, we don't need you to shoot the three unless it's absolutely there. We got TLC for that. We got GT for that. Like GT, Garrett Temple, take him to church on a Wednesday. Cool, calm, and collected, like I said. He was fire. He was hitting his threes. Joey hit a three. Like, we have guys that can shoot it. Karras, stick to your game, bro. Stay in your bag. We know it's in your bag.
Yeah, you can't have Karras shooting 5 for 22. But you mentioned KD, you mentioned Kyrie. Karras can have those off nights because he doesn't have to have those on nights every night for the Nets to win. This Nets team has always been looking towards 2021. Even after the game when we saw that Joe Harris left the bubble to deal with a family emergency. First off, prayers to Joe Harris's family. No one knows what happened, but hopefully everything is all right with him and his family. But he's gone. There's no point in having him there. And the Nets are absolutely not going to say, like, oh, you should stay. Because he shouldn't stay. No. They're playing for next season. They're playing for when Joe Harris is going to get a whole lot of money this offseason.
Facts.
So they're doing those decisions. I mean, we might have only seen 6 minutes of Jamal Crawford, and that might be all we're going to see. But what we have to look at, and this is what we talked about after we recovered from the shock of that awful final play, the Nets aren't showing that this is what their team is next year. The Raptors, this is their team. They're completely
for
healthy.
Probably years, this is the Raptors
This
team.
is the Raptors core. This is the best that they're going to roll out.
They're going to pay Fred.
They're not going to have the money to bring in anyone else. But the Nets have an all-star starting five on the bench right now, injured right now. And we don't need to see, Karras LeVert put up 50 every night because that's not what his job is going to be.
Right.
His job is going to be to sit in that mid-range and get those assists and get those buckets. And Joe Harris, when we re-sign him, and we will re-sign him, Sean Marks said we're going to re-sign him. We have his bird rights. We're going to pay him absolutely ridiculous amounts of money because he deserves it. He's going to sit on the outside. He's going to hit those threes. He's not going to be forced to create a shot like he was in this game because that isn't his game.
No, and I mean, it's tough as a Nets fan, right? You have to watch as a Nets fan and root for the Nets and be invested, yes, because you're a Nets fan, but you have to watch with the eye knowing that, like, we were never taking it this year, and that's okay. We shocked the world a little bit. We were competitive. We got some cool shirts, Bubble Nets versus everybody, Bubble Nets against all odds, but we're looking for pieces, and these pieces are going to fit with some of the best players in the world that are waiting in the wings.
And not even just the best players in the world. The Nets lost by 5 points tonight. Do you think Nick Claxton could score 6 points in this game?
Hell yeah. As soon as you put out that tweet, I was like, Karras had 16 and TLC had 17. If they score over 20, there's the 5 points right there. If we don't turn the ball over so much, there's the points right there. We played great defense today. There was so many times I watched the Raptors not have anything. They did not have any answers. They did not have easy buckets. And they were getting frustrated at times because the Nets figured out how to play defense. But we just didn't have the scoring. If Garrett Temple is leading you in scoring right now in the bubble.
You got problems. And obviously, credit to Garrett Temple. But we got to talk about that last play.
Yeah, I mean, let's we'll talk about it. Let me try and see if anything else is worth.
Let's pull some positives
from my notes. Let's see. The Yes Network flashed the stat. We started off 4 from 4 from 3. That's why we got out to that early lead quick. Then we went 2 of 14 from 3. Like, talk about going completely cold. Karras was cold. Tyler Johnson comes in unafraid. I like what I see out of that young man. I understand why Sean Marks likes him, gave him the bag. He comes in and shoots it. I want to see him improve. But talking about points off the bench, right? Like, these guys had points off the bench from Powell. In the first, I think it was in the first 10 minutes, he gave us 11, and then he had the bucket to basically seal the game.
Yeah, Norman Powell, as soon as he came in, he dunked all over Rhodey, essentially solidified Rhodey's exit from that game. That was when we knew we were going to have a problem, and we knew it would be him to finish it. But those are the kind of things that you're going to get from having a championship team in the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of things that we're going to have from the players that are starting in this bubble for the Nets next season. Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot is not going to start for the Nets next season. He'll be on the Nets. He'll be a key and vital bench piece. I mean, he might. I don't know who's starting at the 4, but
you made me think about TLC, bro, when he fouled out. And now we've seen this multiple times from him. When he fouls out, he kind of acts like he won't make eye contact with Jacques Vaughn. He kind of acts like, what already? Like, I fouled out? Like, bro, you know what you do.
He goes 110%.
You know what you do out here. Yes, you did foul out. Come off. But you know what?
If he's getting 15 minutes, 10 minutes a night, he's not going to have time to foul out. And we want that energy coming off the bench. And we're absolutely going to get that energy from him off the bench, especially with how cheap his contract is. And we saw that a couple of times. We talked about Garrett Temple missing that last shot. We talked about him hitting those threes, but he is that calming agent. He's that veteran presence that a team, especially a team like this, needs. And there are positives that we can take from this game as Nets fans. And I think you have to look at those a lot more than you look at the final score, as much as it is, bad and the Nets lost in a bad play and all these things. There are a lot of positives to take. Karras had an awful shooting night. Pathetic. 26%.
Yeah.
Terrible. He had 11 assists and 6 rebounds.
It happens. Like he brought the cornrows back, cornrow Karras. I thought he was going to cook. In the Blazers game, he had the baby fro, no hang time on those braids. I don't know if it's the hairstyle or what, but yeah, Karras didn't have it today, and there's really not anybody to pick him up. GT was there to pick him up as a veteran. We needed more.
But you can't rely on a 34-year-old veteran.
Yeah, we needed more, and that's what I'm saying. As like Nets fans, we got to watch this and just laugh. Like, yo, we have more. We didn't have more tonight in Orlando, but we have more waiting where very soon you're going to watch the Nets, and there will be answers for that. There will be more than one. There will be multiple choices for who's going to score, who's going to take the last shot. Now, let's talk about that last possession because, damn, I swear I've seen a lot of Nets last possessions this year not go our way. They were deflating. We had the camera rolling. I have a video of Hudson just deflating, falling back into his seat. I don't think I'm going to ever post it because I just felt bad. Like, we were thinking, hey, maybe the Nets are going to win it or not win it, but tie it, force overtime. And everything went wrong.
It was a bad look for everyone involved. And here's where you got to think. There was clearly a play drawn up. You can see it. I watched that replay of that play so many times.
And we talked about who do we think the play was going to get drawn up for.
Right. And we had the discussion. In my mind, it was TLC. You said Garrett Temple. Neither of us said Joe Harris because we knew they were keyed in on Joe Harris.
Yeah, we're like, everybody in the world is thinking Joe Harris is going to take that three.
And he got the ball, and everyone in the world went to Joe Harris.
Kyle Lowry, what a pest. Kyle Lowry was
Kyle
all
Lowry
over
sucks.
him.
Hate Kyle Lowry. And
I just hate him. Like, I think someone was it Pooch? No, Billy Reinhart. Shout out Billy. Billy was like, Nets Twitter, put your adjectives in this thread for Kyle Lowry, and people were like, annoying, frustrating, piece of shit. Like, that's not an adjective.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of hate that people have for Kyle Lowry because they kind of respect the way, like, you want him on your team, you hate him on the other team, right?
He's a little pest, man, and he's scrappy. I was hoping he fouled out. He was getting his fouls up.
We were keeping track of his fouls.
Yeah, we were hoping they were getting in foul trouble. That was going to help us.
He got lucky a couple of times. He got away with some, and then they challenged. And I just think we need that young energy, that exciting energy, that person who brought these bubble Nets, these scrappy G League Nets to the forefront of the NBA's attention. Who better to bring one of the greatest teams in the league next season to the forefront of the NBA's attention?
I said this to Hudson. 2020, this entire year, even the fact that the last episode that we recorded in here was like episode 16 or 17 or something. This year will be looked at forever in the next year, 5 years, 10 years at what happened this year. People will never forget what happened with the bubble Nets, Jacques Vaughn, and this team. And those players, I'm sure, have a special place for Jacques Vaughn in their hearts and in their minds. Like, a brotherhood has been formed in Orlando in these hotels in this glorified AAU tournament. I would hate to see him get done dirty like Kenny Atkinson got done dirty and just kicked to the curb. Like, oh, thanks. We're on to bigger things. The NBA culture is to, hire a new coach, and that coach is going to take you to the promised land. We'll see what's going to happen. I'm cool with whatever is coming because I know what is coming. KD above everything else. And this team is so solid. I cannot wait to just be around covering this team, getting any info on the practices, leading up to next year, whether they start in a bubble, whether they start around Christmas, whether we're allowed back in the Barclays Center or not. This first year was an experiment for a lot of things with the Nets and us included, and there's nothing bad to say about it. The Nets almost came out of this with a 500 or better record. When you look at the whole year with coronavirus and COVID-19, that impacted the Nets NBA team more than any other basketball team. When they look back in history and they say who was most impacted by the coronavirus in the NBA, it was the Brooklyn Nets. And the Brooklyn Nets overcame a lot of adversity, and it bodes well for the future. The future is extremely bright for all of us.
And it's not the end of the adversity. Looking into next year, looking into the future, it's going to be a different kind of adversity, but it's still going to be adversity. And I think we have the cast of characters who can deal with that adversity well. I mean, think about the players. We have the amount of hate, the amount of different things that they've had to deal with in their careers. KD, the snake. Kyrie, the disruptor.
Payback.
Spencer Dinwiddie and his Bitcoin.
I'm telling you, payback's a bitch, and we're about to get a lot of payback. We're going to have guys with chips on their shoulder looking for revenge. I can't wait, because you know what? Nets fans are looking for revenge, too. What were we talking about?
The 12
and 70 season. We're talking about even not just like New Jersey Nets years, but even some of the years that Brooklyn has gone through where it's like,
when we were the worst team in the NBA but didn't even have our draft picks.
We don't have any picks. We're not in the NBA draft. Like, this shit sucks. Nobody wants to root for the Nets. Nobody wants to watch the Nets turning games off early. The Nets used to call me trying to sell me tickets to come to Barclays Center. They used to, I took a free tour of the Barclays Center because they were trying to sell me on season tickets. I wasn't buying season tickets in 2017 or whenever it was. Hey, the time is coming for all that to change. The world changed, and the Brooklyn Nets are going to be on top. So let's look ahead. The next game, Game 3, is Friday at 1:30. That'll be considered a home game for the Nets. I don't think we're in the virtual seats. Who knows? Maybe someone could reach out to us.
I mean, we're not going to say no.
No, we're definitely not going to say no. And then Sunday, the Nets play
6:30.
6:30. That's Game 4, another home game. And we'll record after that, and there'll be another Talkin Nets out on Monday. So you'll be hearing this on Thursday morning, and you can look forward to the next episode on Monday. Every 2 games, we've been knocking them out. We're going to keep that going for the playoffs.
Hopefully those aren't the last 2 games for the Nets in the bubble, but even if they are, we got some cool shirts. We had a fun time.
I ain't got no worries. I love the Nets. I love covering the Nets. I love doing this podcast, creating content around the Nets. I love that the conversation around the Nets is changing. I love that the future is bright. I'm cool. Like I was saying, whatever happens at this point. We were never winning it. Yes, we're all competitive. We want to win games. We don't want to lay down. But whatever happens. So if you want to be on this pod. Oh, actually, I do have one voicemail. Let me play this one voicemail.
We can't disrespect him 2 podcasts in a row.
Yeah, just to get it out there. This is another voicemail from the mystery caller.
First off, shout out mystery caller. We know you're listening. Leave your name, man. Yeah,
he calls and he doesn't leave his name, but he left this message on Friday. We ended up doing the preview podcast with Matt Brooks on Sunday, so we wanted to give Matt Brooks the floor. But shout out to you, mystery caller, calling the voicemail again. You're on Talkin Nets, episode 49. What do you got to say?
What up, Talkin Nets? I just want to say Karis LeVert's a beast, and the Nets should not trade him or Jared Allen. If they keep those guys, Joe, Dinwiddie, the other depth they've built, they'll be far better than any other team in the league next year. And championship is a lock. Peace. And Toronto's in danger.
Maybe not.
Maybe not in danger, but we gave them a run for their money today. Karis is a beast, but you know what? Karis went missing a little bit today, and that is okay. That's fine. He's a 25-year-old budding superstar, not a superstar.
Positive vibes in Brooklyn.
But, yeah, once again, leave a voicemail. The number is 201-870-0461. 201-870-0461. You can call the voicemail just like that and leave a message. Someone text the voicemail.
Don't do that.
Don't text a voice. Why are you? It's a voicemail line. You'll hear something. I think there's a quick message with me on it, like, hey, leave a voicemail. Do that, but leave your name, and you'll get on the pod. Also, make sure you follow us on social media. We're still doing our thing on Twitter, Instagram, creating content, putting stuff out there. Hudson's been killing the graphics, clipping the game up. You know, we were in the office today, so we threw a video out there, give you guys some real content, some real footage of us. Follow us at Talkin Nets, and make sure you follow at Jomboy Media on Instagram, Twitter. Follow Hudson at
Hudson Flynn _.
And you can follow me at Keith McPherson if you like. I really don't even care about the followers. But what I do care about is you subscribing, rating, and reviewing the pod.
Review the podcast.
We sent a T-shirt out. These fresh-ass T-shirts that you see us wearing on the Jomboy Media website, shop.jomboymedia.com/talkinnets. If you write a review, I will send one to you. I've already done that. That's pretty simple, right? Like, to get a free shirt, like $30 value, sent to your crib, write a nice review. That's it. It's that simple. We will see you Monday morning, whether the Nets get swept in 4 or if the Nets
is tied up.
If the Nets tie the series, force game 5, 6, 7, whatever, we'll be here. And I think that's all we've got. We got to go watch the Yankees now. You got anything else, Hudson?
Sign us off, Keith.
Hey, we got 2 more games minimum. Let's go Nets. Brooklyn.
We go